Throughout this league's history, we have seen anomalies. Magic Johnson running point at 6'8", Steph Curry's ridiculous shooting range, and apparently Jason Tatum. But anomaly isn't strong enough of a word to describe Victor Wembanyama because this player is an alien.
Horford into Victor. He's ahead of the pack. He just puts it over. And there is Victor Wembanyama. Oh, mama. That's the scariest thing that we've ever seen.
This is a player that breaks the reality of basketball because in nearly 80 years of the NBA's existence, we have never seen this. And the scariest part of it all, he's only 21 years old. He's only getting started and he's coming for everybody. Wemby shouldn't exist, but he does. And that strikes fear into the entire basketball world. I still remember the first time that I saw the name Victor Wembanyama. He was in this custom 2023 NBA draft class in NBA 2K21. It was this giant from France who could do quite literally everything on the basketball court. I thought it was just some, made up player because there's no way that a prospect like this actually exists in real life. But all it took was one Google search of the name Victor Wembanyama for me to find out that this was as real as it gets. We've all seen it by now, this video of a 16-year-old Victor Wembanyama cooking Rudy Gobert, an NBA Defensive Player of the Year award winner. This is when the moment became real. This isn't some random created player in NBA 2K. He's an actual person, or possibly an alien, but either way, he's real. He actually exists. At the age of 16, he was already playing basketball professionally at the highest level in France in LNB Pro A for Nantes. He put up quiet numbers in his debut season, but it was enough to receive the honors of Pro A Best Young Player. He had another 2 quiet seasons at Asvel following that, but in 2022, things were about to get serious. At this point, the world didn't know much about Victor Wembanyama, but that was about to change. The NBA has scheduled 2 games between LNB Pro A's Mets 92 and G League Ignite. This was set to be a big matchup between the 2 top players of the 2023 NBA draft class. For G League Ignite, it was Scoot Henderson, an electrifying athletic guard that was reminiscent of a prime Derrick Rose. For Mets 92, a player who had no comparison, Victor Wembanyama, an anomaly of all anomalies. And that was now on full display for everybody to see. 37 points and 5 emphatic blocks, and he did it for the whole country to see it here on ESPN2.
There was a bunch of weirdness around the crowd, like looking at each other like, can you believe this? Are we witnessing this? I feel like I saw the future.
At this point, people realized that we were witnessing the best prospect since at least LeBron James. But even one of LeBron's biggest eaters, Richard Jefferson, had to be honest with himself about that.
If LeBron James, at that exact moment, showed up, Victor would go higher than him. You have never seen any player in the history of this planet, the Earth, be able to do what he can do at his size. We have never seen that.
The hype was real now, and before even entering the league, Victor was already impacting it. Teams knew exactly what was at stake in this upcoming draft, and the league was gearing up for many teams to be racing each other to the bottom, trying to secure the best odds at landing this generational player. That race to the bottom was so serious that the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver had to warn teams against tanking. The league was getting ready for Victor's arrival, but he still had one more year to leave his mark in France. Over the course of those 2 exhibition games against G League Ignite, Victor Wembanyama picked up so much interest that the NBA chose to stream all of his LNB Pro A games for this season on the NBA app. That's a different kind of motion. During these games, we got to witness Victor display his outrageous ability to handle the ball, the vicious dunks that look so effortless, the deep threes off the dribble, and maybe the craziest play of all, a putback dunk off of his own missed 3-pointer. He wasn't even trying to hide the fact that he's not from this planet, but what he did in the season with France was unprecedented, leading the league in points, rebounds, and blocks per game, winning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and carrying a team that wasn't even expected to make the playoffs all the way to the finals. If people weren't yet buying into the hype, they certainly had to now, because at 19 years old, he was far and away the best player in one of the world's top professional basketball leagues. He was obliterating grown men. There was never once a question of whether or not he was going #1 overall in the NBA draft. The question was who was going to be lucky enough to get him. All eyes now on the NBA draft lottery. 14 representatives from the 14 teams in the lottery were all sitting nervously here in Chicago, while over in France at 2 a.m. in the morning, the prize himself was watching everything play out live. If you ever wanted to win an NBA draft lottery, this was the one to win. As it got down to the final 4 teams that had a chance of victor, it was the Spurs, Rockets, Hornets, and Blazers. Pick number 4 went to Houston, pick number 3 went to Portland, and pick number 2,
the Charlotte Hornets. And that means that the number 1 pick in the 2023 NBA draft goes to the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah. That's what this meant. All of San Antonio was losing their mind because they just got Victor Wembanyama.
You guys won the lottery of all lotteries. Victor Wembanyama.
We did.
And it seemed like from Victor's own reaction that this is exactly where he wanted to be, and he meant business.
I'm trying to win a ring ASAP, so be ready.
The 2023 NBA draft became the most watched in NBA history, and it was all because of Vic, who was inevitably getting drafted first overall. He was joining an elite group of first overall picks by the Spurs, David Robinson and Tim Duncan.
Well, you are going to a storied organization in the San Antonio Spurs.
God, I'm a damn Spurs.
You are a Spurs. Speaking of the Spurs,
After the most anticipated and watched NBA draft ever, now the attention shifted over to the most anticipated Summer League debut ever. The Thomas & Mack Center was completely sold out for Victor Wembanyama's first ever NBA minutes, and those minutes were a disaster. I was there. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. He was missing everything, falling all over the floor. I mean, he even got dunked on badly. It was just a bad showing with everybody watching. And naturally, as it always is, everyone overreacted. He was getting called a bust over a Summer League game. But that didn't last long, because his second game in the Summer League was incredible. All those ridiculous things that he was doing in France were now on display here. 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks. This was the Wemby that we expected to see, and it was incredible. But nothing could have prepared us for what he was about to do in his rookie season. Everyone was tuned in for his debut, the most watched opening night in 11 years. Although it was a quiet game from Wemby. Not bad, we just expected more. But that next game against Houston, he turned it up.
On the drive.
Houston damn sure had a problem tonight, a 7'5" problem that was incredibly clutch. In overtime, the Spurs put this game away with 4 more points from Wemby, 2 of those over Dillon Brooks on this shot with a taunt afterwards. That's what happens when you poke this bear before the game. We would find out real soon that Wemby is really one of those ones. He will take things personally. In fact, it didn't take long at all to find this out, because after a quiet first half against Phoenix early into the season, Shaq said this.
He's never seen a guy like Wembanyama. Yes, you have. His name is Bobo.
It just so happened that 2 nights later, the Spurs would play the Phoenix Suns yet again, and Victor Wembanyama completely dominated. He showed that he's not taking any disrespect from anybody. It was his coming out party, 38 points and 10 rebounds, while Bobo didn't even check into the game. Kevin Durant knew that we were in for some shit. If you're locked into the story and enjoying the video so far, just know that this isn't the only one. There's many more on the channel and many more coming soon. So don't miss out, because 93% of you watching right now are not subscribed, which means 93% of you are missing out on more videos just like this one. Hit that subscribe button as we push for that big 100K milestone. Chet Holmgren versus Victor Wembanyama. This rivalry went back to 2021 when they faced off in the U19 World Cup final. Both players absolute unicorns, both elite defenders, and they would be the 2 players who were fighting for the Rookie of the Year honors this season. So naturally, their first matchup of the year was highly anticipated, but it was a big letdown. Both Wemby and Chet struggled in this game while the Thunder just coasted to victory. And that was becoming the story of this Rookie of the Year race. Wembanyama has slightly better individual numbers, but Chet's Thunder were significantly better than the Spurs, which made him the early favorite to win the award.
I think it's very clear, and I think you guys will agree with me on this. Chet Holmgren is the Rookie of the Year.
With Wemby being the competitor that he is, he couldn't have this. It was time to turn it up a notch. An 8-block game against Memphis, a 20-20 game against Chicago, a 30.6 block game against the Lakers, and a 30.7 block game against Portland. But one game was really about to stand out, one that was about to change the trajectory of this season, one where he was facing the scariest player in this league, Victor Wembanyama versus Giannis Antetokounmpo. But Wemby wasn't scared of nothing.
Look at them guard one another. Trying to poke it away. Wembanyama. Puts it down. Look at this. This is around a guard in Lillard and a finish over a 7-footer. Oh, man. Special talent. a special talent. The drive. Oh, it's knocked away by Wembanyama. Knocked away by Wembanyama.
Wembanyama didn't back down at all against Giannis. He put together a spectacular game with highlight after highlight. It just so happened that Giannis was better, like a lot better. But Wemby still earned his respect in this one.
He's special. He's gonna be an extremely good player. Well, I've never seen anything like him. 7'4", 7'5". I don't know how tall he is. He's not 7'3". He's way taller than 7'3". So whoever say he's 7'3", that's a lie.
Over the month of January, Victor Wembanyama was spectacular. He was finding his rhythm now, and the rest of the league could only watch as that happened. 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks per night across the month. A month where he regained the control of the Rookie of the Year race against Chet Holmgren. The Spurs were still nowhere close to the Oklahoma City Thunder, but they were still winning some statement games like their win over Minnesota. And it was in this game where Wemby hit the Defensive Player of the Year favorite, Rudy Gobert, with a sham guide. Successfully. James Naismith wouldn't believe his eyes if he saw this shit. This is how far your creation has come, brother. In February, Wemby's outrageous performances continued. Against the Toronto Raptors, he managed to record a triple-double with blocked shots, and he did it in 29 minutes. The only player to ever record a triple-double with blocks while playing under 30 minutes. Against Sacramento a week later, he stuffed the stat sheet once again, finishing a single assist shy of a rare 5x5 stat line. He was so close to pulling it off. So close that he literally pulled it off the next day, a 5x5 stat line against the Los Angeles Lakers to become the youngest player in league history to record a 5x5. Statistical dominance from Victor Wembanyama. Performances like these kept increasing his odds to win Rookie of the Year over Chet. It felt like he was one statement away from wrapping this thing up, and we were about to see that statement against Chet Holmgren himself. This was the last time that Chet and Wemby would face each other all season, and both players were doing their thing in this one. The only difference is that the San Antonio Spurs actually found themselves in a winnable game this time. A winnable game that Victor Wembanyama refused to let get away. He was torching the OKC Thunder in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter where he made his ultimate statement.
He fires. He scores! Oh, mama! Wembanyama! It's Holmgren trying to answer. He is stuck and taken away.
He outplayed Chet, he made the big plays down the stretch against Chet, and he won his team the game over the best team in the Western Conference. The Rookie of the Year race was over, and it wasn't even close. The gap would only increase over the next month as Victor continued to dominate this league. 30-12, 6-6 against Indiana, 33-15, 7-7 against Brooklyn. In his biggest game of the month, a 40-point, 20-rebound game against the New York Knicks. More history made by Victor Wembanyama. There were no doubts now that the Rookie of the Year award was going to Wemby, but now his name had entered the Defensive Player of the Year discussion.
I know I said on here a little while back that Wemby shouldn't be the Defensive Player of the Year, and I lied. Wemby is definitely the Defensive Player of the Year.
Victor was gaining some serious momentum in this award race. A 9-block game against Denver, 7 blocks against Philly, 7 blocks against Memphis, a game that included a move that we've never seen in the NBA before, a sham guide into a spin gather for a layup. He's truly ridiculous, but his last game of the season against Denver was really ridiculous. Because while the Nuggets were fighting hard for playoff seeding, Wemby decided to completely spoil their night. He had already made a statement against Giannis this year. Now he was completely embarrassing Nikola Jokic.
Back to Victor. Oh, Wembanyama! And he brings it on the bounce. Go ahead.
He's feeling it now. That is something special.
A 34-point game to take down the Denver Nuggets. One where Victor scored 17 of those points in a single 3-minute stretch to lead a Spurs comeback. This game capped off a legendary rookie season. One where he averaged 21 points, 10 rebounds, over 3.5 blocks per game, and nearly 4 assists per game. No player in this league's history had ever done that in their rookie season, and as expected, he was the Rookie of the Year unanimously. He also became the first rookie ever to make the All-Defensive First Team and finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting to Rudy Gobert. Wemby had no problem with this decision, but he made it clear, win it now, because after that, it's no longer his turn. This was one of the greatest rookie seasons in NBA history. He came in with huge expectations and he managed to surpass them.
How scary is it that this is the worst season of Wemby's career? Very scary for everybody.
Before the next NBA season began, Wemby had another chance to make a huge statement to the entire basketball world, because the 2024 Olympics had arrived and he would be representing France, the host country. Wemby managed to lead France all the way to the final, taking down some powerhouse basketball nations along the way. A run where he was dunking on everybody, aggressively blocking shots, and connecting on those deep three-pointers. And in the final, France would face the final boss of international basketball, Team USA. France played extremely well in this game, especially Wemby, who dropped 26 points as they fought for that gold medal. A fight that Team USA barely survived, but they did survive. France had to settle for silver. This loss was devastating for Wemby, but he gave us one final statement to never forget.
I'm learning, and I'm worried for the opponents in a couple years.
Yeah, NBA and
everywhere.
It was clear that Victor Wembanyama was ready to take this sport over and start winning right now. The Spurs were bad last season, but that was expected of a team who just got the first overall pick. This season, they knew it was time to make some additions to get their young star in those winning positions that he was ready for. So in came some veterans, Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul. On top of that, they drafted Steph Castle with their lottery pick. These weren't massive changes, but this team was certainly a lot better than it was last year. And so was Wemby.
No, Wemby the putback finish. Victor Wembanyama taking the contact, count it, and a foul. He's too strong. Wemby fires, and he hits another three. Courtois. Look out. Pump fake Wembanyama. For 50. He's not human. He's an alien.
A 50-point performance by Victor Wembanyama at the age of 20, making him the 4th youngest player in league history to record a 50-point game. But those 3 players in front of him needed at least 40 minutes to do so. Wemby did it in just 32. His rookie year had already shown us that he was going to be special in this league. He was building on that even more here in year 2. He somehow got even scarier by becoming an even more deadly marksman from downtown over the offseason, increasing his 3-point percentage by 3% while also increasing his frequency by 3 attempts per game. Some of those threes he was pulling up from the parking lot. You could already see the work that he had put in over the offseason on full display. He's already 7'5" with a near 8-foot wingspan. You can't contest this shot, so becoming a more consistent shooter was one of this league's biggest fears. A fear that was now real. And remember his statement to Rudy Gobert about it being his final chance to win the Defensive Player of the Year award? That was becoming real too.
Gobert.
He had already entered this season as the favorite to win the Defensive Player of the Year award, and he was running away with it now. It wasn't even close. A 9-block game against the Clippers, 7 blocks against the Jazz, 7 blocks against the Timberwolves, 10 blocks against the Blazers, and 8 blocks against Philly just a game later. For the first quarter of this season, he was averaging 4 blocks per game, the highest average that this league has seen since 1996. He was 20 years old and already the best defender on the planet, on pace to become by far the youngest Defensive Player of the Year award winner in league history. After the absolute absurdity of Victor Wembanyama's rookie season in the NBA, the league knew that they had a primetime player that they just had to promote and put on primetime games. Which is why the San Antonio Spurs, a team that won just 22 games last season, found themselves playing in a Christmas Day matchup. Some people question why the hell would the terrible San Antonio Spurs get a Christmas game? But it didn't take long for Wemby to answer that question.
Wembanyama connects on a deep three. Wembanyama on a deep one. Here's Wembanyama, has the size on the interior, elevates and finishes from Victor Wembanyama doing alien things on Christmas. Wembanyama, you bet, 42 for Wemby.
With everybody at home watching, Victor Wembanyama delivered a Christmas Day masterclass, showing exactly why he should be on that Christmas Day lineup every single year for the rest of his career. This season, Victor Wembanyama had really taken things to another level. His game had expanded, he was bringing out new moves, and was simply just a better player than he was last season. Another year of development had this demon averaging 24 points, 11 rebounds, and nearly 4 blocks per game in year 2, already one of the NBA's best players. But the Spurs still weren't good enough at this point of the season, still not in position to make the play-in tournament in the West. Something needed to change if they wanted to make the play-in. With the way Wemby was playing, quite literally anything could happen if the Spurs made it there, and they were about to make a big move. De'Aaron Fox had become available here at the trade deadline, and it was made clear that his preferred trade destination was the San Antonio Spurs. Like many other players around the league, Fox was very intrigued by the idea of playing with Victor Wembanyama. And luckily for Fox, he was getting exactly what he wanted because the Spurs pulled the trigger. Wemby now had an all-star caliber teammate that was in the prime of his career, and already in his first game as a Spur, this move was paying off. Fox with 24 points and 13 assists in a win against Atlanta. Then a couple games later against Washington, Wemby Wemby and Fox had their first spectacular game as a duo. The both of them had caught fire on this night, 31 points from Wemby, another 30 added on by De'Aaron Fox. They had already found a rhythm and they were ready to turn this season around in San Antonio. But things weren't about to go as planned.
Pretty crazy that yesterday Kevin Durant was fielding questions about Victor Wembanyama becoming the next face of the NBA. And while that still very well could happen, we are now talking about Wemby likely missing the rest of the season.
A blood clot in his shoulder. This was devastating news. He had just played in his first ever All-Star game days ago, and now he was being told that he was out for the season. All the hope that the Spurs had for making it to the play-in was gone. Wemby's hold on that Defensive Player of the Year race was gone. An award that he was the runaway favorite for was now one that he couldn't qualify for because he couldn't play enough games. This news, of course, came with concern about whether or not this might be a recurring issue, but the Spurs had confidence that this was just one isolated incident. And 5 months later, he is cleared to play, ready for the 2025 NBA season.
You look much stronger, I think, than the last time we saw you. Your biceps are popping a little bit more. Just how much there? Yeah, that's.
I can assure you, nobody has trained like I did this summer, and this is my best summer so far. Like I can tell the progress is just incredible. I feel better. I look stronger. And the scale says I'm heavier, so everything is a green light. I'm so much more under control, and my conditioning has gotten so much better. But that comes at a price, And what I've done this summer, it's world class. I mean, even in the field of professional sports, I don't think many people have trained the way we've trained this summer.
This is a player who is 7'5", almost has an 8-foot wingspan, can shoot from the parking lot, handle the basketball, play make, and defend all on an elite level. But the singular attribute that makes him the most terrifying is his obsession with constant improvement. In a generation where it feels like most great NBA players don't have that hunger, Wemby wants everything. He is determined to become not just the greatest basketball player that he can be, he wants to become the greatest player to ever play this game. For 3 decades now, Michael Jordan has held down that title. Kobe came close, and so did LeBron, but the majority still says that Michael Jordan has not been passed. But the 2020s has brought on a new challenger for Mike's legacy to hold up against, a challenger that was built in a lab to finally be the one who could surpass that legacy. Victor Wembanyama checks every single box that there is in having GOAT potential, and he is coming for that title. If he continues to improve at the rate he's been improving, if he stays locked in, 20 years from now, we might all look back and say that the greatest player ever wasn't supposed to exist. But thank God he does.